Europe, often celebrated for its rich history, cultural diversity, and picturesque landscapes, is not without its challenges. While many countries on the continent enjoy relative stability, some face significant issues that make them particularly dangerous for residents and visitors alike. Currently, Montenegro, Italy, and Moldova stand out as the most hazardous European nations due to a combination of political instability, organized crime, and social unrest. Let's delve deeper into the reasons why these countries are considered dangerous in today's context. So, here's the list of 10 most dangerous European countries right now. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to the channel and comment your thought. Here we go. Number 10. Serbia, a nexus of organized crime and political tensions. Organized crime networks. Serbia has long been a hotspot for organized crime, largely due to its strategic location as a gateway between Europe and Asia. The country's borders facilitate the trafficking of drugs, weapons, and human beings. Serbian criminal groups, often connected to larger Balkan networks, are deeply entrenched in activities that undermine public safety. One of the most alarming aspects is the rise of narco-terrorism, where drug cartels exert influence over local communities. This has led to an uptick in violent crime, including assassinations and bombings. The government's efforts to combat these networks have met with limited success, as corruption within law enforcement and the judiciary often hampers progress. Political instability. The political climate in Serbia is another source of danger. Protests against President Aleksandar Vučić's administration have become increasingly common, fueled by allegations of authoritarianism, media suppression, and electoral fraud. These demonstrations often escalate into clashes between protesters and police, creating unsafe conditions in urban centers like Belgrade. The unresolved status of Kosovo adds another layer of tension. Serbia's refusal to recognize Kosovo's independence has led to periodic flare-ups, both politically and militarily. Border skirmishes and nationalist rhetoric further destabilize the region, making it a volatile environment. Economic challenges. Poverty and unemployment remain significant issues in Serbia, particularly in rural areas. The lack of economic opportunities drives some individuals toward criminal activities, perpetuating a cycle of violence and insecurity. For tourists, this translates to heightened risks of theft, scams, and other petty crimes. Key safety concerns for visitors. Urban violence. Gang-related shootings and explosions are not uncommon. Protests. Large-scale demonstrations can turn violent without warning. Corruption. Tourists may encounter issues with corrupt officials or fraudulent businesses. Number 9. Cyprus, a divided island with escalating risks. The division of Cyprus. Cyprus has been divided since 1974, following a Turkish military intervention in response to a Greek-backed coup. The island is now split into the Republic of Cyprus, predominantly Greek Cypriot, and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, which is recognized only by Turkey. This division remains a source of tension, with periodic incidents along the Green Line, a United Nations buffer zone separating the two sides. The lack of a comprehensive peace agreement means that relations between the Greek and Turkish communities are often strained. Nationalistic sentiments can lead to acts of violence, particularly in areas near the border. For visitors, navigating this geopolitical landscape requires caution and awareness. Increased organized crime. Like Serbia, Cyprus has seen a rise in organized crime. The island's location makes it a hub for money laundering, drug trafficking, and illegal gambling operations. Criminal groups often operate across both sides of the divide, complicating law enforcement efforts. High-profile murders and gang-related incidents have raised concerns about public safety. In some cases, these crimes are linked to international criminal networks, further highlighting Cyprus' role as a focal point for illicit activities. Economic inequality and corruption. Despite being a popular tourist destination, Cyprus grapples with significant economic inequality. The division of the island has exacerbated disparities, with northern Cyprus lagging behind in terms of development and resources. Corruption is another pervasive issue affecting various sectors, including real estate and public administration. For visitors, corruption can manifest in various ways, from inflated prices for goods and services to encounters with unscrupulous officials. This undermines trust and creates an environment where crime can thrive. Natural disasters and climate risks. Cyprus is also vulnerable to natural disasters, particularly wildfires and droughts. These events have become more frequent and severe due to climate change, posing additional risks to residents and tourists. Emergency response systems are often strained, especially in rural areas. Key safety concerns for visitors. Border areas. The Green Line and its surrounding regions can be unpredictable. Organized crime. Tourists may inadvertently become targets of scams or other illicit activities. Environmental hazards. Wildfires and heat waves can pose serious risks during the summer months. Number 8. Montenegro, a hub of corruption and political unrest. Rampant corruption. Montenegro has long struggled with systemic corruption, which permeates its political, judicial, and economic systems. High-profile scandals involving government officials have eroded public trust, and the lack of accountability often emboldens criminal enterprises. The country's weak rule of law allows organized crime to flourish, further jeopardizing public safety. Money laundering and financial crimes are particularly rampant, with Montenegro serving as a conduit for illicit funds flowing between Europe and the Balkans. This has tarnished the nation's reputation and created an environment where illegal activities thrive. Political instability. The political climate in Montenegro is fraught with tension, often stemming from disputes over national identity and foreign alliances. Divisions between pro-European Union factions and those favoring closer ties with Serbia and Russia have led to protests and social unrest. Political polarization has made governance challenging, leaving critical issues unaddressed. Elections and political rallies are often marred by accusations of fraud and voter intimidation, further destabilizing the country. For residents and visitors alike, the unpredictable nature of Montenegro's politics can pose serious risks. Organized crime networks. Montenegro's location along key smuggling routes has made it a hotspot for organized crime. Criminal groups engage in drug trafficking, arms smuggling, and human trafficking, often with ties to larger Balkan networks. Violent clashes between rival gangs have occurred in urban centers, sometimes spilling over into public spaces and endangering innocent bystanders. Key safety concerns for visitors. Corruption. Tourists may encounter issues with bribery or fraudulent businesses. Protests. Political demonstrations can escalate into violent confrontations. Criminal activity. Petty theft, scams, and violent crime are significant concerns in certain areas. Number 7. Moldova, Europe's poorest nation facing mounting challenges. Economic hardship. Moldova is the poorest country in Europe, with high levels of poverty and unemployment. These economic struggles have fueled emigration, leaving behind a population that is increasingly vulnerable to exploitation. The lack of opportunities drives some individuals toward illegal activities, perpetuating a cycle of crime and instability. For tourists, this economic disparity can translate to heightened risks of theft, scams, and other petty crimes. Additionally, the prevalence of corruption within law enforcement and public institutions often undermines safety measures. Transnistria, a breakaway region. The presence of Transnistria, a self-proclaimed republic not recognized internationally, adds another layer of complexity to Moldova's challenges. This region operates as a de facto state with its own government, military, and border controls, but it remains heavily influenced by Russia. Transnistria is often described as a black hole for organized crime, including arms smuggling and human trafficking. The lack of international oversight in this region creates a lawless environment that poses significant risks to those who venture near its borders. Political instability. Moldova's political scene is highly volatile, with frequent changes in government and allegations of corruption. The country's geopolitical position between the European Union and Russia has made it a battleground for influence, further polarizing its citizens. Protests and political rallies are common, often escalating into violent clashes. The lack of effective governance exacerbates these issues, leaving many citizens feeling disenfranchised and fueling further unrest. Key safety concerns for visitors. Border areas. The Transnistria region is particularly risky due to its lawlessness. Petty crime. Tourists are often targeted for theft and scams. Corruption. Encounters with corrupt officials or businesses are not uncommon. Number 6. Greece. Economic turmoil and rising social unrest. Economic instability. Greece's economy has faced significant challenges over the past decade, from the 2008 global financial crisis to the subsequent sovereign debt crisis. Although some recovery has occurred, high unemployment rates and austerity measures have left many citizens disillusioned. Economic hardship often fuels social unrest, with strikes and protests becoming regular occurrences in major cities like Athens and Thessaloniki. These protests can quickly escalate into violent confrontations between demonstrators and police, creating unsafe conditions for residents and visitors alike. Tourists should be particularly cautious during nationwide strikes, which can disrupt transportation and other essential services. Organized crime. Greece's location at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa makes it a key transit point for human trafficking, drug smuggling, and other illicit activities. Criminal networks operate with relative impunity in some areas, particularly in border regions and major ports like Piraeus. Violent crime, while less common, has been on the rise in recent years, especially in connection with gang activities. Pickpocketing and scams targeting tourists are also prevalent in crowded areas and popular tourist destinations. Refugee crisis. The ongoing refugee crisis has added another layer of complexity to Greece's challenges. The influx of migrants from the Middle East and Africa has strained the country's resources, leading to overcrowded refugee camps and tensions between local communities and newcomers. This situation has occasionally resulted in violent clashes, further contributing to the perception of Greece as a risky destination. Key safety concerns for visitors. Protests. Demonstrations can escalate quickly and become violent. Theft and scams. Tourists are often targeted in busy areas. Refugee camps. Avoid visiting or passing near overcrowded camps, as tensions can run high. Number 5. Italy. A complex mix of organized crime and social tensions. Organized crime syndicates. Italy's history with organized crime is well documented, with groups like the Mafia, Cosa Nostra, 'Ndrangheta, and Camorra exerting significant influence over various regions. These criminal organizations are involved in activities ranging from drug trafficking and money laundering to extortion and human trafficking. In southern Italy, particularly in regions like Calabria, Sicily, and Campania, the presence of organized crime creates an atmosphere of fear and instability. While tourists are not typically direct targets, the pervasive influence of these groups contributes to broader societal issues, including corruption and violence. Political instability and corruption. Italy's political landscape is often characterized by instability, with frequent changes in government and widespread allegations of corruption. These issues undermine public trust and create an environment where crime can thrive. Protests and strikes. similar to those in Greece, are also common, disrupting daily life and occasionally leading to violent clashes. Natural disasters. Italy's geographical location makes it prone to natural disasters, including earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and floods. Regions like Abruzzo, Campania, and Sicily are particularly vulnerable to seismic activity, posing risks to both residents and tourists. Emergency response systems, while robust, can be overwhelmed during large-scale disasters, leaving visitors at risk. Key safety concerns for visitors. Theft. Pickpocketing and bag snatching are common in tourist hotspots like Rome, Florence, and Venice. Organized crime. Visitors should exercise caution in southern regions known for mafia activity. Natural disasters. Be aware of evacuation routes and emergency procedures in disaster-prone areas. Number 4. Bosnia and Herzegovina, a nation struggling with deep divisions. Ethnic tensions. Bosnia and Herzegovina's history is marked by the devastating war of the 1990s, and the country continues to grapple with the ethnic divisions that fueled the conflict. The Dayton Agreement, which ended the war, created a complex political structure that divided the country into two entities: the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, dominated by Bosniaks and Croats, and Republika Srpska, dominated by Serbs. This arrangement has resulted in a highly fragmented political system, where ethnic groups often prioritize their own interests over national unity. The lack of cooperation between these entities exacerbates tensions and undermines efforts to build a cohesive society. Periodic flare-ups of ethnic animosity contribute to an atmosphere of uncertainty and instability. Political instability. Bosnia and Herzegovina's political system is notoriously complex and inefficient. The country's tripartite presidency, designed to ensure representation for all major ethnic groups, often leads to gridlock and paralysis. Political leaders frequently exploit ethnic divisions for personal gain, further deepening societal rifts. This instability hinders economic development and creates an environment where corruption thrives. For residents and visitors, the unpredictable political climate poses significant risks, particularly during periods of heightened tension. Organized crime. Organized crime is a pervasive issue in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with criminal networks involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, and arms smuggling. The country's location along key smuggling routes between Europe and the Balkans makes it a hotspot for illicit activities. Corruption within law enforcement and the judiciary often allows these criminal enterprises to operate with impunity, undermining public safety and the rule of law. Visitors should be aware of the potential for scams, theft, and other crimes, particularly in urban areas. Key safety concerns for visitors. Ethnic tensions. Avoid discussing sensitive political or ethnic topics. Petty crime. Pickpocketing and scams are common in tourist areas. Political protests. Demonstrations can escalate into violent clashes. Number 3. Kosovo, a young nation facing significant challenges. Unresolved status and ethnic divisions. Kosovo declared independence from Serbia in 2008, but its sovereignty remains contested by Serbia and several other countries. This unresolved status contributes to ongoing tensions, particularly in northern Kosovo, where the Serbian minority often clashes with the ethnic Albanian majority. Periodic outbreaks of violence have occurred in this region, with protests and confrontations between local communities and law enforcement. The presence of international peacekeeping forces underscores the fragile nature of Kosovo's security situation. Weak governance and corruption. Kosovo's government faces significant challenges in establishing effective institutions and combating corruption. Political instability and allegations of misconduct among public officials erode public trust and hinder progress. Weak governance also creates opportunities for organized crime, which is a major issue in Kosovo. Criminal networks are involved in activities such as drug trafficking, human trafficking, and money laundering, often with ties to regional and international operations. Limited economic opportunities. Kosovo's economy is one of the weakest in Europe, with high unemployment rates and limited prospects for young people. This economic stagnation fuels emigration and contributes to social discontent. For visitors, the lack of infrastructure and resources in certain areas can pose challenges, particularly in more remote regions. Key safety concerns for visitors. Border regions. Avoid areas near the Serbian border, where tensions are highest. Organized crime. Be cautious of scams and other criminal activities. Public demonstrations. Protests can escalate into violence, particularly in urban centers. Number 2. Turkey, a country torn between stability and conflict. Political instability. Turkey's political environment has grown increasingly volatile in recent years. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government has faced criticism for authoritarian practices, including crackdowns on free speech, media censorship, and widespread arrests of political opponents. The failed coup attempt in 2016 further exacerbated tensions, leading to a state of emergency that reshaped the country's political landscape. Protests against the government are not uncommon and can escalate into violent confrontations between demonstrators and security forces. The unpredictable political climate creates risks for both residents and visitors, particularly in major cities like Istanbul and Ankara. Terrorism and security threats. Turkey has been a target of terrorist attacks carried out by groups such as ISIS and the Kurdistan Workers' Party (PKK). These attacks have targeted public spaces, transportation hubs, and tourist attractions, creating a heightened sense of insecurity. While the Turkish government has taken measures to combat terrorism, the risk of attacks remains a concern, especially in areas near the southeastern border with Syria and Iraq. Travelers should exercise extreme caution in these regions. Geopolitical tensions. Turkey's involvement in regional conflicts, particularly in Syria, has strained its relations with neighboring countries and international powers. The ongoing refugee crisis, coupled with military operations along the Syrian border, adds another layer of complexity to the country's security challenges. These tensions can lead to sudden escalations, impacting travel and safety. Key safety concerns for visitors. Terrorism. Avoid crowded public spaces and stay informed about potential threats. Protests. Steer clear of demonstrations, which can turn violent. Border areas. Avoid traveling near the Syrian and Iraqi borders. Number 1. Ukraine, a nation at the heart of war. Ongoing conflict with Russia. Ukraine has been embroiled in a conflict with Russia since 2014, following Russia's annexation of Crimea and the outbreak of war in the eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. The full-scale invasion launched by Russia in 2022 has plunged the country into one of the most devastating conflicts in modern European history. The war has resulted in widespread destruction, displacement of millions, and a severe humanitarian crisis. Civilians face constant threats from missile strikes, artillery shelling, and combat operations. For travelers, the entire country is considered a high-risk destination, with active combat zones posing significant dangers. Economic and infrastructure collapse. The war has decimated Ukraine's economy and infrastructure, leading to power outages, shortages of essential goods, and disruptions in public services. Urban areas that were once thriving are now marked by destruction, making everyday life challenging for residents and risky for visitors. Efforts to rebuild are underway, but the ongoing conflict makes progress slow and uncertain. The instability of basic services can pose challenges even in relatively safer regions. Humanitarian crisis. The war has created one of the largest humanitarian crises in Europe since World War II. Millions of Ukrainians have fled the country, while those who remain face dire conditions, including limited access to health care, food, and clean water. International organizations are working to provide aid, but the scale of the crisis makes it difficult to meet all needs. For visitors, the humanitarian crisis underscores the importance of avoiding travel to Ukraine unless absolutely necessary. Even in areas not directly affected by combat, the strain on resources and infrastructure creates challenges. Key safety concerns for visitors: active war zones. Avoid all travel to conflict-affected regions. Infrastructure challenges. Be prepared for disruptions in basic services. Humanitarian risks. Consider the strain on local resources when planning travel. The conclusion. So, guys, this was the 10 most dangerous European countries right now. Hope you will like it and appreciate it. While Europe is generally regarded as a safe destination, Montenegro and Moldova present unique challenges that demand caution from residents and visitors alike. Montenegro's corruption and organized crime create a volatile environment, while Moldova's economic struggles and the presence of Transnistria add layers of complexity for those navigating the country. By understanding the risks and taking appropriate precautions, travelers can minimize their exposure to danger while exploring these culturally rich but troubled nations. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and press the bell icons for latest upcoming travel videos. Bye-bye. See you.